You kind of compare the brain to Swiss cheese.
I do.
Explain that.
I do. First, I need to explain what dementia is. Dementia is only a list of symptoms. It's not a diagnosis. And so it is a list of symptoms that tells us that person is losing normal brain function. For example, they're losing the ability to access the normal brain function of thinking, of memory, of the ability to learn. Those normal brain functions we depend on to exist as humans. Something is causing them to lose that, and there must be a cause for that. It doesn't just happen as we age. And there's over 70 causes of dementia, 70 things that are going in, robbing that person of normal brain function. So the way that I want you to look at it is that cause, that diagnosis, and the leading diagnosis, of course, is Alzheimer's disease, 60 to 80% of the time. Alzheimer's disease is going in and robbing that person of normal brain function, actually taking it physically away. So that brain that has millions of normal brain function, that is filled with those microscopic brain cells that carry that brain function, something is going in and grabbing it and taking it physically away. So their brain begins to look like a piece of Swiss cheese. So I liken that to Mr. Alzheimer's, is that dirty rat that's running around that person's brain, that diagnosis, grabbing cheese and leaving holes.
Eating it away.
It's exactly what it looks like. When we look at a scan of the brain, there's random holes. And so when that person goes to access normal brain function, it's now a roll of the dice. Are they going to hit cheese or a hole? When they hit cheese, they look, act, and feel normal because that is their normal brain function. When they hit that hole, there's no normal brain function for them to access, so their body presents that in the communication of these dementia symptoms. There's nothing there. But what I want you to understand, this is so important, there's no pain sensors in that brain, so that person can have random holes and random cheese, millions of holes, millions of loss of normal brain function, but they don't feel any different.
Communicating with a person like that, if they've got all of these holes developing in their brain, so to speak, how do you communicate effectively?
That is so difficult because you really can't communicate effectively by giving them too much information. Let me give you an example,
Well,
Chris.
what do you do?
What you do is you give them less. You only share the information they can handle, knowing they can handle less and less. They're not processing our words the same way anymore. They are hearing blah, 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 blah. And so if they're constantly hearing that, it makes them anxious because they're normal. Why is this person going blah, 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 blah? And it's common things. If I were to ask you with dementia, if I were to say, and you had dementia, Chris, I'd say, Chris, would you like to come to dinner? That's common, right? Mm-hmm. If you heard blah, 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 what would be your reaction? No.
I'd tune you out.
Yeah. Or you'd say, no, because that would make you anxious. Why am I leaning over you going blah, 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 blah? So that is the problem we have. So instead of talking questions and options, good communication with someone with dementia is the opposite of that. Those are no longer our friend. Instead, you make statements and take action. Instead of saying, would you like to come to dinner? I just simply say, come with me, and take you there, and everything would be prepared. And this is so basic. The reason why I don't want to ask you questions or give you options is because you have to think about that, and your thinker's broken.
You also talk about having meaningful moments. What do you mean by that?
Meaningful moments are when we are indeed taking action to help that person with that feeling. So if we know that that person is hungry, like I said, instead of asking questions, that's going to present anxiety for them. Do you want to come to dinner? What would you like for dinner? Where would you like to go for dinner? All of those options make that person think, make them anxious. A meaningful moment is more when you just say, come with me, and you set them down and you're there with them and they are enjoying a dinner without having to think about it, but you are present with them. Always we must present ourselves calm, confident, patient, and present in that moment, with them in that feeling, and not expect anything else. That's unrealistic.
What are some other tools that you give to caregivers?
Frequently what I say is, and this comes up often, is we need to go into their world. They exist in a very special dementia wonderland that consists of what they can and cannot process. So it's almost like a jigsaw puzzle that has some pieces missing. And so we need to understand that their vision, their perception of the world has to be less and less, smaller and smaller. So we want to go into their world. Familiar things, familiar routines are going to be easier for them because they can't learn something new. Even if you're listening to the same story over and over again, you want to be present with them in that moment when they are enjoying a memory from the past. What you want to do is just be with them. Only give them the information they can handle. Just be, talk less, do more, and stay calm, confident, patient, and present with them in the moment. Listen to them where they are, because we can't change that moment.
Let's talk about caregivers a bit and them personally. I remember a story that I heard about a gentleman. He had cancer, and he fought the battle and he won. But then he became a cancer caregiver. And he said, by far, caregiving was harder than battling the disease. Why is that? What makes caregiving so hard?
There's a million different tasks that you must perform to help someone who needs caregiving. There's so much that you have to do for them and still take care of yourself. That's the scary part of being a caregiver. You constantly have to sacrifice your own needs because the person you're caring for may or may not need more and more. And if dementia is involved, they will need more and more. And the road of the dementia journey can be anywhere from 2 to 20 years from the time they're diagnosed.
And it's a role that's thrust upon you.
Exactly.
You didn't ask for it. Suddenly you've got it.
It's totally involuntarily. I run into people all the time and I say, did you raise your hand when someone said, I want somebody to take care of Dad in his dementia years? You do not raise your hand and say, please let that be me.
Let me close out by asking you the best advice for caregivers.
The best advice is to ask for help. You need a team of care champions, professional, family. And let me say that when we ask for help from family, often we find out that dementia will bring out all the dysfunction in a family. And so it's difficult. But you must build that team very much like you would if you were going to war, because you're going to war with this horrific silent pandemic of dementia. You have to build your army, those care champions that are going to help you, because you cannot do this by yourself. You'll simply run out of ammunition. And this is huge. There's so many moving parts to dementia. Even though it might be a single person you're caring for, it takes this whole team to get this done. So early, you need to start. You need to educate yourself to understand dementia as much as you can, even though everyone's unique and presents differently. You've got to have the basics because that's going to help you to understand how overwhelming this is. You build your team, family, friends, care professionals. You learn in the community who is a care professional that truly understands dementia, because not everyone does. You learn that. You learn from the medical community. What doctors understand dementia? Who is experienced in this? And you build that champion team so that you know this is a care marathon and you're going to take your team with you. Otherwise, you will not make it across the finish line.
Laura, thank you very much for being on The Best Times.
Thank you for having me.